best laid plans never go accordingly, as everybody should know on our show in the Huddle. But JB, you look like you are outside on a rainy day in or around Orlando, Florida somewhere. And I appreciate you kind of getting off the road and a traffic-filled Veterans Day, Observance Day here as you were heading back from, it looks like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game from this weekend. How you doing, my friend?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. I found that the traffic in Orlando is just as bad, if not worse, than what it was like when I lived in Los Angeles. It's just, anyway, we thought we left with plenty of time. Didn't quite make it, almost made it home. But we've been, keeping the viewers waiting, and we've, been getting a lot of questions about these bowl games. And so I think, I just had to jump out of my car off the side of the road and let's do the show.
Hopefully nobody arrests you for being on their property. Let's hope this goes well. This is run of the mill. I mean, remember back in the Ryan Jones interview days from the Coast Guard when I was in front of a pizza place on the side of a road. So this is, I guess, revenge back at you, my friend. But people are not here to hear about us and our problems broadcasting throughout the season. It's enjoyable, folks. Don't get us wrong. But we are here to talk about the ECAC Bowl pairings. There are 4 of them. To kind of catch everybody up with where things kind of lay today, the Centennial Conference and MAC Conference have announced their 3 bowl pairings. New England Bowl has announced their 3 bowl pairings. And the ECAC last night informed us that they were adding a 4th bowl pairing. Compared to what we were told originally 3. Now, it's in their bylaws to do this, or in their manual, so this is not anything, that was completely unexpected. And when we saw the number of healthy declared teams there, we too thought maybe they would, and in fact they confirmed yesterday they would. So it's time to tell the 250 people watching live right now, which breaks our own record. So thanks, folks, for watching. Guys. And make sure you send some JB love in the comments, because he is definitely stressing his marriage right now by doing what he's doing. But here we go.
She literally kicked me to the curb about months ago, Frank. Get out of the car.
Look, I was the officiant of your wedding, I hate to tell you, so I don't want to be your divorce attorney as well. So let's be careful here. Let's go to our first bowl, which is the Asa S. Bushnell Bowl. These are in no particular order, folks, and the bottom team, except in one case, is the, quote, home team, or where the game will be played. So here we go, JB. You ready to see these with me? Here we go.
Yeah,
first,
let's go.
It is Alfred University at 6-4, at Salisbury University 8-2. Now, Salisbury, remember, is a team that nearly knocked off number 2 in the East Region, Frostburg State. They took overtime, and Jack Nowitzki, who was injured in the game versus Wesley, which was an overtime game the previous week, did not start. It was Frank Pippich Jr. who got my game ball on the ATN podcast you may have heard this morning. And Alfred has had one of those seasons. They came into the Brockport game with a head of steam, but Brockport kind of snuffed them out. And it's been up and down since then, but they were responsible for Cortland's loss heading into Cortland's game against Brockport. So they have some strength. It really depends on which Alfred team shows up, I think, in this game. So kind of break down Alfred at Salisbury the way you see it.
Well, Alfred's offense is really predicated on the success of Naz Smith. And if he's able to run the ball well, their line is blocking, then I think, the Saxons are a tough out as any. Salisbury, we know, they live and die with the triple option. If it's running smoothly, they're hard to beat. Their defense, I think, is definitely underrated. They caused a lot of missions. Certainly kept them in the game against Wesley, and probably should have won the game against Wesley. But that sometimes, these triple teams are a little bit behind, and you can't pass the ball. It can sometimes creep back and but I think this is going to be a football game that with 2 great running teams with tough defense, a low-scoring affair. Definitely like the pairing of Alfred and Salisbury.
It's one I'm going to be watching for, that's for sure. The result is, I think, could be very close. I think high scoring would probably be the affair here. And a lot of times these bowl games do turn into that, weather permitting. This is down in Maryland, so it should be pretty good in that respect. So Alfred and Salisbury. Oh boy, I almost did the unspeakable.
Salisbury, yeah.
Salisbury.
Mess up like I always do.
Yeah, so Alfred fans, please say it with me now. Salisbury. It's kind of like there's a missing W before the L. Salisbury. 8 and 2, 7 and 2.
Softball.
Okay, sir. So congratulations to those teams. Let's go to the next one. And here's a team that may be familiar to some fans of the previous game, or the game that's still on screen, and that is in the Clayton-Chapman Bowl. And here it is. It is Wesley at 6 and 4. 5 and 4 in the end, Jack. At Westminster College, a participant in the ECAC Bowls, I believe, 2 years ago. Westminster at 7-3, 7 and 2. Congratulations to them and to Wesley. Here's an interesting fact for folks. Wesley has not posted a win in their final game of the season, I don't believe, since 2004. Now, that's a little deceiving because, obviously, it's a question of, hey, they went to the playoffs all the time, Frank, the NCAA playoffs, or at least most of the time in that time, maybe if not the entire time. But, hey, you know what? They don't know what it feels like to end the season with a win, the full season with a win, because they have never won the Stag Bowl. Well, here's their opportunity to begin to turn things back around again and know what it feels like to end the season with the win. But Westminster, a headstrong team, they lost 2 in a row mid-season and then they didn't lose since in their conference. So you can see those were the 2 games. I think Grove City was one of them, if memory serves. And maybe we're talking about Grove City later. I'm not sure yet. We will see what happens here. So we have some more games to talk about. Give me your take on Wesley at Westminster.
Well, I think these are 2 pretty dangerous teams that can, they can prize and beat you in a lot of different ways. I mean, Wesley's obviously not had the season that they wanted. At the same time, they very explosive offensively, still playing very tough defense, brand of football. Westminster, I think they knocked off W&J earlier this season, so they know how to beat playoff caliber teams and. Wesley, in spite of its losses, is always a playoff contender in my book. So this would be a great matchup between 2 very strong opponents, and I think it's going to come down to the wire.
Okay, let us go to the next game. I had some pings today. Hey, not asking for any advances or anything, but is my team? Should I start writing my release or not? I heard some asking, and I'm not going to say who did that, but look. We didn't give away the house secrets on this one at all. In fact, they didn't give us the names of the teams until very late because they knew that, giving it to us, we just can't keep a secret. I'm kidding. Yes, we can. But here comes a case of 2 teams that maybe were wondering, at least one of them, because I think they were on the bubble when it comes down to this. But I think they deserve this game. And it's kind of a throwback game to the days when Ithaca was in the Empire 8, now in the Liberty League. It's the Scott Whitelaw Bowl, and it's Utica versus Ithaca. Now, here's a note for you. This is not at Ithaca's Butterfield Stadium. They may have torn that to shreds already for some reason, although it wasn't Cortica's site this year. It's at Shelkoff Field at Cornell University. So, nice grand, Ivy-style stadium will be the host of this. Utica at Ithaca. Now, you got kind of the high-powered offense of Utica, but they also have a very strong defense. Ask Brockport about that because they struggled a little bit putting up points against Utica, did Brockport. Against this Ithaca team that, it's really a strong defensive team, although they put up a lot of points against Cortland early and had to hold on to win Cortica on Saturday. So Utica versus Ithaca, that throwback game, where do you put an edge on something like this, JB? This one's a tough one to call, I think, and another good game for that matter.
Considering how bad the Butterfield Stadium got messed up in that mud bowl a couple weeks ago, it does make sense to play it at Cornell, but I mean, Utica's, they've just had one of their biggest wins in program history with 75 points on Hartwick. Stowe, their running back, the guy is like a bull. I mean, he's going to be real tough for that Ithaca defense to bring down. And, as we've seen, their quarterback, even though he's a freshman, can really throw the ball. And Peyton Miller, the wide receiver, has had a great season. So this would be a really good test between pretty evenly matched teams, I think. Even though Ithaca squeaked by with the win in Cortica, they haven't really blown anyone away, and Utica, as we've seen, has been about as tough and out as there is. So, should be a great game, especially in Cornell Stadium. It should be a beautiful setting for a bowl game.
There were three teams that gave Brockport a hard time this season, and mainly because of their defenses. I pointed this out in the podcast this morning as well. It was Ithaca, which only let up 13 points in the Brockport game. Cortland, who did not sign up for ECACs that I know of. And Utica, that gave up 22 points. But, I mean, at halftime, this game was very much in doubt between Utica and Brockport. So this is good. This is a really good game. This might be that exception to the rule of the high-powered offense question in bowl games. We may see single digits by one or both teams if their defenses show up the way I think they both can in this game, or they could be scoring points on defense and do it that way. So we got one left here. If you are wondering if your team is included in the pairings, this is it. And to those that did not make it, before we even get there, I will say this. You had a great season. I looked at all these resumes. They were great teams. I was thrilled to see the number of teams that had declared with winning and 500 records. Just because you had a 500 record didn't mean you didn't play some great teams along the way to get there and beat some. So, rest assured, this was a great pool of teams, probably one of the best ones I've seen. And kudos to the ECAC for compiling these games in these bowls. So one more to go, and here it comes. This is another game I'm actually really looking forward to because I think this could actually test all the lights in the scoreboard. It's the 2018 James Lina Bowl, and here it is. It is Morrisville State University at Grove City College. We talked about Grove City earlier, having beaten Westminster in a very close affair in the PAC earlier this season. Morrisville State, they have been one of those teams that flew under the radar of a lot of people for most of the season. And then when they faced Brockport, they were sitting there at, 6-3 at the time. Yeah. We're like, where did they come from? But, they, I think, beat Alfred, if I remember correctly. Utica, I think, had a struggle with them as well, if memory serves. This is that Empire team that you don't want to play in your schedule if you could avoid it because you just never know what you're going to get. So tell us a little bit about what you see in this matchup, JB.
Well, about Morrisville is that offensively they've got the solid 1-2 punch of Gwinner at quarterback and Edmond at running back, and they can a bunch of different ways. Their defense has played well enough to get them to that 6-4 mark, and Grove City, you got to really take your cap off to them because. This is a program that struggled for a while. No wins for a couple of seasons, just a couple of years back, and here they are, sitting at 7-3, 6-3 in the PAC, and getting to host an ECAC game. So kudos to the Wolverines on their season. They've really turned things around down there in Pennsylvania, and I don't know if they're necessarily the favorite in this matchup. Usually people give them a little bit of a nod there, but they earned the hosting rights for this one, Frank. So this should be a great matchup. I think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this one.
I agree with you there. Let us kind of run through the four games one more time for folks that might be joining us late live, and obviously can scroll back or watch later in the archive on this. But we're going to go through these four games, and I'm going to ask you to pick the game, JB, that you think is going to be the closest affair out of the four. I know that's a tough one because we have some good ones here. But again, we got the Bushnell Bowl. And that is Alfred University at 6-4 at Salisbury University 8-2. Should be an interesting affair to say the least. The Chapman Bowl, Wesley at Westminster. It's West versus West when you look at the way this goes. Yeah, a lot of W's in both colleges officially in the way they title themselves, and both very good at football. All joking aside right now, 6-4 Wesley. 7-3 Westminster. Some would say that the 6-4 Wesley drove was a better schedule. You know what? The PAC and Westminster want to prove otherwise in this game. This is a challenging game, and for those that think that Wesley is the gimme in this one, I wouldn't say that necessarily. This has been one of those years for Wesley, one of those years that they haven't seen in a long time, to be honest. The Scott Whitelaw Bowl is Utica versus Ithaca at Sholkoff's Field at Cornell University. 6-4 versus 8-2. But again, Utica, one of those teams that when they put it together, Peyton Miller and company will, kind of shock you with some of their speed at the receiving core. They are very good. Don't take your eyes off that one. I'm sure Ithaca will not. Dan Swanstrom and company. And finally, the James Lina Bowl, Morrisville State at Grove City. And 6-4 Morrisville State team, again, deceiving in that number versus a Grove City team that has glimmers of real success this year, 7-3. JB, which of those four would you say you think will be the closest of them?
I just think based on the defenses, I'm going to go with Utica Ithaca. I think this is going to be like a 10-7 or 9-6 type of. We've seen Utica play, teams in that fashion this year. Ithaca has won a lot of games, but they don't necessarily blow teams out. So I think it'll be close. Ones where I think a play here or there made by the defense or maybe even special teams decides who takes home the trophy.
For those wondering where maybe Springfield, Maritime, Merchant Marine went to, they are in New England Bowls. Check those listings. For those wondering, Misericordia went to a Centennial MAC Bowl. Those were teams that had declared also for the ECAC, so that's why I'm spotting those ones in particular. So if you didn't see their names and you're wondering why, that's why. They are going to other bowls. The general landscape is, I believe, a noon start time, but the host can change the set time with the ECAC's assistance. So check your local listings, as they say on TV, because the start times will be announced now that the pairings are known. There may be a reason to move the game for some reason at these locations time-wise, although usually it is played either at 12 or 1 o'clock, never anything too different from that. Final thoughts, JB?
Yep. I think we great pairings here, and thank you to the ECAC for letting us debut them, and for the listeners out there or watchers, I guess, as it were, now that we're more of video. We're typically we'll keep you guys covered through the following playoff weeks. We'll recap these bowl games probably a week from today, and keep you posted on the progress of the playoffs. So. Hopefully next time I'll be inside in front of the computer, but sometimes travel plans gets the best of us. But thank you for catching me on the fly here, and it should be great couple 4 bowl games next Saturday along with some playoffs.
Yeah, we'll have a playoff preview like we do each year coming up later in the week. We're going to try to go to some practices and talk to some team members of the playoff teams. And we got a lot of content to come still with playoffs and bowls here. Folks, again, congratulations to the teams that made it to the ECAC Bowls, or any bowl for that matter. We don't want to be completely nepotistic here, but to extend your season is something that not every team gets to do, especially outside the East region and the couple conferences that are the outliers. There are not many bowl games out there, and we are lucky in the East to have them. And even Pat Coleman of D3Football.com buys into the idea that we should have more bowl games across the country. So let's hope that this setup does get some acceptance across that country. Thanks again to everyone at the ECAC for helping us, and folks, thanks for joining us.
Happy Veterans Day.
Amen.